In the United States, the number of full-time evangelical missionaries has dropped significantly from about 1.1 million in 2001 to roughly 430,000 by the end of 2025. We must ensure the next generation is better supported, better prepared, and better sustained so they can go and stay and produce much fruit. That is how the Father is glorified. Welcome to the 938. Today I'd like to share some very important things to you when it comes to world missions. As I read reports and observe what is happening in world missions, several concerning trends stand out, especially regarding missionary retention. These issues should concern pastors, churches, and missionaries alike. Missionary retention is facing serious pressure. Broader evangelical data, which in many ways reflects what we see within our BBFI family, shows that nearly 43 to 47% of long-term missionaries leave the field within their first 5 years. Over the past 25 years, the percentage for the BBFI is 12%. However, in the last 5 years, that number has jumped to 39%. Each year, roughly 10,000 missionaries come off the mission field, including those who retire. Of the estimated 50,000 who left in the past 5 years, about 10,000 died in service, while approximately 40,000 left due to financial strain, family issues, medical needs, cultural stress, or transitions into other ministry roles. On top of that, many older missionaries are retiring, which continues to lower the numbers. While the BBFI numbers may differ slightly, the overall trend and concerns remain the same. Decline in missionary numbers and tenure. In the United States, the number of full-time evangelical missionaries has dropped significantly from about 1.1 million in 2001 to roughly 430,000 by the end of 2025. Even more concerning, that a large portion of departures, possibly up to 71%, are tied to preventable factors such as inadequate funding, lack of preparation, relational conflict, the pressures of cross-cultural work. At the same time, the continued retirement of the baby boomer generation is accelerating the decline. Across major U.S. mission agencies, the pattern is consistent. Recruitment has slowed, attrition has increased, and many fields now have fewer missionaries than at any time since the 1980s. North American missionary sending peaked around 2006 and 2008 and has steadily declined since. Where missionaries once commonly served 20 to 30 years, many now return within 5 to 10 years. In the BBFI, the average tenure has declined from 25 years to 18. Some of this change is because some of our older missionaries who served 65 to 72 years on the field have passed away in the last few years. So what is the historical shift in the missions movement? The modern missionary movement expanded rapidly in the 19th and 20th centuries through organizations like the China Inland Mission and Sudan Interior Mission, as well as various denominational boards. The post-World War II era, especially in the United States, saw unprecedented missionary sending. By the 1900s and the 2000s, the movement appeared strong and sustainable. However, that period was shaped by conditions that have now changed significantly. Those conditions were more givers in churches for missions, lower cost of living on the mission field, more positive cultural attitudes toward long-term overseas service. Missionary backgrounds help prepare them for hardship and long-term commitment. These situations and others have shifted noticeably over the last 20 years. What are the primary causes of missionary attrition? First is financial unsustainability. Financial strain is one of the leading reasons why missionaries leave the field. The traditional support-raising model worked well when churches were growing and giving was more consistent. However, church attendance has declined in the United States and many giving patterns have changed. Many churches that once supported multiple missionaries now support only one or two. Now, I know BBFI affiliated churches still support more than that on average, but we're not untouched by the trend. At the same time, older faithful givers are aging out, and younger generations give differently. Missionaries often spend 30 to 40% of their time on financial support raising. Monthly support fluctuates as supporters experience economic pressures, creating ongoing instability. Currency fluctuations, medical costs, education expenses, and emergency travel are often not fully covered. Many missionaries also lack retirement savings, creating a long-term uncertainty. In the BBFI, finances are the fourth highest reason why missionaries have resigned since the year 2010. Number 2, insufficient member care, or should I say inadequate member care, as we like to call it, missionary care. This includes mental health support, crisis intervention, counseling, and practical assistance. Many mission agencies, especially smaller ones, do not have strong missionary care systems. Yet missionaries face significant stressors, culture shock, language barriers, isolation, security concerns, spiritual and emotional strain, and also interpersonal conflicts. Research indicates that about 50% of missionaries report feeling unsupported during personal or family crises. Without adequate care, stress accumulates and then leads to burnout and depression, and ultimately departure from the field. Since 2010, health in various ways is the third highest reason BBFI missionaries have resigned. Even if missionary care isn't always named directly, it likely plays a role. It's also worth noting that our younger missionaries expect this kind of support much more than our older generations did. Number 3, family and children's challenges. Family issues are another major factor in missionary attrition. Raising kids on the mission field is not easy. Education is one of the biggest challenges with limited options. You have international schools, which are expensive and not always available. Homeschooling. This is demanding on parents and the children even. National schools. There's a lot of language barriers and other things there. Or boarding schools. Family separation. Teenagers often struggle with identity as third culture kids, not fully belonging to either their home or host culture. Family concerns account for roughly 40% of early missionary departures, especially when families return home to children's education or for children's education and for parental care. And then they just don't return to the field. In the BBFI, family challenges is the second highest reason for resignation since 2010. Number 4, changing global mission context. The global mission landscape has shifted significantly. Western missionaries are no longer the primary force in global evangelism. In the BBFI, the number 1 reason missionaries have resigned since 2010 is transitioning to ministry back in the United States. Christians from the global south, such as Nigeria, Korea, Brazil, and especially the Philippines, are increasingly sending missionaries worldwide. Western missionaries now often serve more in training, equipping, and partnership roles rather than primary evangelism or church planting. In addition, missionaries from other countries can enter restricted countries easier than we can. This shift is healthy and biblically consistent, but it requires major adjustments in our thinking, training, funding, and expectations. We still have missionaries who are church planners. We understand our responsibility is to teach believers and make disciples who observe all things such as faith, obedience, growth, the authority of Scripture, compassion, and bold witnessing. Basically, equipping them to reach their own people and the world through evangelism, discipleship, and church planting. By God's grace, we have witnessed this taking place all around the world through the ministries of our missionaries. With the BBFI, we have seen through our sister fellowships worldwide over 1,200 missionaries sent from their countries internationally. As we move forward, we must continue to think strategically while remaining sensitive and surrendered to the leadership of the Holy Spirit. The Great Commission is still for the churches of the United States. Let's not make it the Great Omission. Number 5, increased security challenges. Yes, we know the best place to be is in the will of the Father. Sometimes, though, that puts us in difficult places and circumstances. Many regions now present higher security risks, including terrorism, kidnapping, and government restrictions. Some areas are closed or limited to Western missionaries, requiring more complex or creative access strategies. At the same time, the internet allows people to access the gospel without physical missionary presence. Now, this does not reduce the need for missionaries. Whenever possible, there remains the great value of having people on the ground doing the work of ministry personally and directly. The command to go is still clear. At the same time, though, we should strategically consider and utilize the opportunities and resources available to us to strengthen and expand our effectiveness. Number 6, generational differences. Younger generations approach missions differently than previous ones. Earlier missionaries often expected lifelong service and long-term sacrifice. Today's younger missionaries often prefer shorter commitments, 2 to 5 years. They expect strong missionary care with mental health support and a desire of a better work-life balance. They're also more cautious about financial fundraising and more aware of cultural and historical sensitivities. These differences are not a lack of commitment. It just means that we need to be creative in finding ways to utilize their calling, their skills, and professions to serve on the mission field, in church planning or support roles. This is one reason why we have the World Initiative Network. So what do we do? Over the past 25 years, the percentage of BBFI missionaries leaving the field was 12%. However, in the past 5 years, that number has jumped to 39%. These trends cannot be ignored. They require honest evaluation of how we approach missions, support missionaries, and to fulfill the Great Commission. We still focus on evangelism, discipleship, and church planning. We see mission organizations respond in these ways: developing new financial and support models, strengthening counseling and missionary care systems, improving education support for missionary families and MKs, creating more flexible short-term and mid-term pathways to serve, expanding tent-making and business as mission models, updating training to include cultural awareness, trauma care, and partnership development. The reality is that these multiple models are needed today. Lifetime service, midterm, short-term, and even self-supporting, all depending on the calling and context. I believe we're going to start seeing countries refuse work permits to missionaries. In fact, we already are seeing this. I hear this all the time, especially in Europe and even in Africa. So our people are going to have to find ways to be in the country, something that would require a government approval and then maybe even generating income. We still believe the Great Commission has been given to the church. The local church is the sending agency and must still be a very important part of world missions. Perhaps our churches need to be more trained themselves and prepared as well as we enter these ever-changing times. Better training and preparation are essential, though they alone will not eliminate attrition. The key question is how to adapt wisely while staying faithful to our philosophy of evangelism, discipleship, and church planning. My final challenge: we must not lose our burden for world missions. The Great Commission has not changed. This is not a call to retreat, but a call to respond. Respond with prayer, wisdom, and obedience. Jesus still commands us to pray that the Lord of the harvest would send forth laborers into his harvest, according to Matthew 9:38. He still works through local churches to send people into ministry and world missions. Our churches must continue to provide the inspiration, encouragement, and direction by challenging young men, women, and young people to fully surrender their lives to serve the Lord, including answering the call to world missions. This is not lowering the standard. It is strengthening the system so that the biblical calling can be carried out with greater faithfulness and longevity. This rests on the leadership of churches. If they don't lead in this, who will? Therefore, if 50,000 plus missionaries have come off the field in the last 5 years, we must ensure the next generation is better supported, better prepared, and better sustained so they can go and stay and produce much fruit. That is how the Father is glorified. So I encourage you to think about these things that I've shared with you today. Yeah, they are concerning. There is attrition, but we can turn it around with our churches taking up the task, taking up their responsibility, and saying we're going to step up and do what we can to reach our world with the gospel. Oh, we're excited about our sister fellowships around the world and multiple countries who are sending missionaries. But that doesn't mean we sit back and rest ourselves. No, we keep going too. And we participate with them and join with them in reaching our world with the gospel. So I challenge you today in this 938 podcast. Let's keep going for the sake of the gospel so that people can hear the truth and see the light of Jesus Christ, because right now they are in darkness and they need Jesus.